Hello everyone, this is part 2 of Rejecting of the Cornerstone, and as you guys seen in part 1, I based most of my video around the rejection of the cornerstone. The people rejecting Jesus Christ, the parable that Jesus gave in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament verses, explaining and connecting the Bible verse of the cornerstone that's been rejected by the builders. And as we know, the Masons, the cultists that they are, the deviant Satanists that they are, in disguise, of course, right? Because they're supposedly not a religious organization and blah, blah, blah. But they have these ceremonies and they stole that name, of course, because, you know, they rejected Christ as their cornerstone. And it's symbolic to them, and so they stole it. But at the time, Jesus was talking about the Jewish people, the religious leaders of the time, and the people that did not accept Jesus and did not accept Christ as their cornerstone, which is the most important, strongest stone in the whole building, in the foundation. It sets and creates everything for that building. Um, Absolutely. Pretty much all the dimensions, location, orientation is set by the cornerstone. It's very important. Um, so yeah, where you set your cornerstone is important in the symbology of when they're laying their buildings or whatnot. And that was a parable that Jesus gave from the Bible. So now in this video, I'm going to show you guys the Masonic ceremonies, explain a little bit of the Masonic ceremonies. Like I've said before, there's a lot of different ceremonies and videos that are online that you guys can see where they've held these public um, rituals. Okay, it's a form of magic. It's Satanism. Don't be fooled. Don't think it's just some cute little thing your town hall's putting on. Cornerstone laying ceremonies are public events that mark the official beginning of construction, often for important buildings like libraries, schools, or government offices. They involve placing a cornerstone, which is symbolically the first stone laid into the foundation. These ceremonies frequently include a time capsule, a ceremonial trowel, and a dedicatory inscription on the stone. And like I said, there's a whole ceremony that goes with it. Usually they have corn or grain and oil and wine that they use at these ceremonies. They use their square, their plumb line, and their trowel, and then they give their little sayings. They say, "Is it tried, tested, and true?" and all this crap. It's a form of magic. It's a ritual done by Masons in the public in front of everybody. So yeah, and like I said, many references: Illinois State Capitol Building, Cornerstone, Missouri State Capitol Building, so-called Lady Liberty, which we know isn't a lady, but in the New York Harbor, that whole cornerstone. There's a whole video you can go look up, and not the videos, excuse me, the pictures and whatnot. They had a ceremony, pictures were taken, they're publicly available, and you can see that ceremony that they held for that event. And like I said, and even like with the whole thing with the rejecting of the cornerstone, which is what they do. It's everybody that rejects Christ, it does not want Christ as their cornerstone, that rejects the Messiah. um, this is their symbology of it, of the Bible verse. And and like for the Illinois State Capitol building, they had a cornerstone that they rejected it. They claimed, after 2 years, they pulled the cornerstone out, and they said that it was cracked. That's why they had to pull it out. But when they removed it, you can't really see any cracks. Then there was a second story or a rumor that came about that said one of the guys' name on it, which was the Attorney General, Robert Ingersoll, was an atheist. And being an atheist, and a Mason, you must believe in God. So the Masons had to take out that cornerstone because they had somebody's name on it that didn't believe in a higher power, which means he couldn't be a Mason, which means he could not take part in the ceremony per se, and so his name should not be on the rock or the ritual. So I'm going to play a couple videos here. Hopefully you guys will get a lot out of this. I will link the videos, and I look forward to hearing you guys' discussions, feedback, and comments. Now I will probably pause it every once in a while and jump in and add my 2 cents and whatnot, but I wanted to show this video because it's important. You put a lot of great information in there, and I think you guys will get a lot out of this, but I want to give a heads up before I start the video that ad may start, and I want to apologize beforehand. This guy's got like 30 something thousand subscribers, so an ad might play when I'm watching the video or jumping around, so I do apologize.
Will be linked to some recent uploads where I've done a bit of a focus on ceremonies, rituals, superstitions, and I'll put those links in the description. But this particular, this will have to be a series in regards to, again, the ritual. So, again, the focus of this particular one will be looking at Freemasonic connections to Cornerstone ceremonies. And for instance, I did a recent video on faith, hope and charity, but also grain, oil and wine. And again, those links will be in the description. And just the connections there. So these are some examples of cornerstones and how important they are. But again, in future episodes, I'm going to go into the history of it. So this is quite ancient. There are some very, very interesting connections that will connect to, pediments, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, grain, oil and wine, and anyway, so in churches, cornerstone ceremony is very important in Christianity, but also we'll go back to earlier times, Greco-Roman, even Ptolemaic, Egypt, and other places, and that will be focus of future episodes. But for instance, Ephesians 2:20, this is not the only instance in the Bible that it's mentioned, and again, especially the Old Testament as well, but
it's mentioned twice in the Old Testament, once in Isaiah and once in Psalms. I've linked both those in the other video, as well as in the New Testament, where it's linked at, and talked about.
The connection to Solomon's temple, which is so important in the Freemasonic.
Absolutely. And this guy gives a lot of great information. I usually don't use other people's videos, and I usually don't play other people's videos, but sometimes people nail it, and when somebody nails it, you got to tip your cap to tip. You know what I'm saying. You got to tip your cap to them and tell them good job.
Tradition, and also to Masonry in general, especially the story of King Hiram of Tyre.
Hiram
Cleopatra's Needle.
Supposedly a real person. He's
again,
just a Masonic.
But again, this was a cornerstone Freemasonic ceremony. You see the aprons.
Everyone knows the story of Hiram.
But also the lifting gear as well, which is a focus. So there's a lot of stuff about what stones can't be lifted using simple technology. And that's anyway.
And there's
Illinois State Capitol.
Not only with all the symbolism that goes on with the Hiram Abiff is important in Freemasonry, but I mean, just in the name with the dual H's and everything, these Masons, they go to great extents and great lengths for their ceremonies and for their rituals. And here you're going to see that.
So they found
so much careful effort goes
original
into this
cornerstone
stuff.
Was found buried under the steps there. This was in 1944. And this original cornerstone is now in, I forget which corner, but it's outside of the building there. And what's interesting, well, firstly, John Cochrane, but also he was one of the architects. Alfred Picanard was another architect, and the Icarian movement, that's an interesting thing, the Icarian movement, you can look into that because it's got a lot to do with, and that was...
Again, I'll link the video, full video, if you guys want to watch it.
It was then, removed and later put underneath there. But there is another interesting, let's call it a rumour. Rumours persist for years. The original stone was removed because it was cracked. Not because it was cracked, but because it was inscribed with the name of former Attorney General.
See, this is what I was telling you about. This is their ritual right here. This is them and doing it in plain sight. But they have to give a explanation to the public, to the masses, that they'll believe, and they won't be the wiser. So they can perform their ritual in public, and nobody's the wiser. So, it's not because an atheist's name was on it. It's not because there was a crack in it. This is all stuff that they said afterwards. This is a ritual, just like the laying.
Who many believed is an atheist. For instance, at least under the United Grand Lodge of England, Masons, you must believe in a higher power, so atheists are not allowed to join.
That's not true at all.
There was also some who thought it was replaced because it was laid by Masons, which was offensive.
Yes, atheists are not allowed to join. However, just because they say God doesn't mean that they actually mean the God that you and I serve is God. Their God is Satan. Their God is Lucifer. That's who the God that they serve. So when you join, all you have to tell them is that you believe in a higher power, you believe in a supreme being, not that you believe in Jesus Christ, not that you're a follower of Jesus Christ. None of that matters to them. But they're not a religious organization, right? Absolutely ridiculous.
At the time. Well, given the prevalence of the importance of Freemasonic rituals in cornerstones around there, I would dismiss this one out of hand and I would either it was cracked or that the name the groundbreaking ceremony will lay out the land, but the cornerstone ceremony cements where it will be. And these are capital buildings mainly, and public buildings and monuments, but in building churches, cathedrals, and older temples, even the layout of town plans, but that will be future episodes. But rededication of the Cornerstone, Missouri Capitol. So, for
Yep.
instance, again,
That's how
Masonic
important a lot of
ceremony.
those cornerstone
And
ceremonies is. Their whole towns, a lot of times are directed and built around certain cornerstones.
by the square, this is to test the stone. And again, this is referenced in the Bible and much older texts as well. So, but also using the plumb line as well, which is one important feature in regards to this, and grain, oil, and wine as well in this. When a cornerstone slate, grain, oil, and wine is used in the ceremony. Again, I did that recently. I'll put that link in the description anyway. But also time capsules, and again, in future episodes, I will look at
That's
this.
all true. But let me get. Here we go.
It 100 years after. So once again, and it's on this tripod as well, which is a nice feature because there's a coin to commemorate it, and the use of the tripod. So this is the Sydney Masonic Museum. Block and tackle, this ancient lifting technology. You don't eat magic ice cream cones. Sorry, but you just don't. And yeah, so you can lift this stuff, and it's not it's beautiful, simple physics, and it's a wonderful thing. But again, this use of the tripod ceremonially as well. For instance, the U.S. Capitol, the Cornerstone ceremony, the tripod, and again, this lifting, lost ancient high technology, as they say. South Dakota building, state capitol building again, and it's, yeah, okay, that's an campus thing, but the Cornerstone as well. So,
Yeah, I do apologize, guys, for the ad.
yeah, okay, that's
I don't
the
understand
campus
why a
thing, but
truther would have ads in their videos. I really don't understand it.
the Cornerstone as well. So,
Just shows that you're bought and paid for.
Again, the measures in the Statue of Liberty and these connections through these esoteric organizations hidden in plain sight, as they say.
100%. Hidden in plain sight. That's what the occult means.
Know, forbidden, secret, kind of knowledge, whatever you want to call it. But the Cornerstone ceremony as well. So you see the plaques for the rededication. This is, again, this was in 1960, so 1884, and then rededicated 1962.
So not even 100 years.
The ceremony and the lifting
and they're already
gear and
doing
that type of
other
stuff.
more ceremonies.
What the stone workers have to do, they have to move stone, and stone masonry has been, it's connected with secrecy, these type of things. But the trade, the old crafts as well, and we'll look in that in future episodes. But the ceremonial trowel here, so grain, oil, and wine, and then usually the cornerstone would have a small hole included in it, and they would put in a time capsule usually, and then it would be ceremonially cemented over. And so this is why they have this ceremonial trowel used in the Cornerstone ceremony.
Yep.
Again, very ancient tradition. St. Mary's Cathedral here in Sydney, Catholic Cathedral. Again, we see the tools of like the mallet, the trowel, and the square with important features. These are ceremonial items used in the ceremony for the laying out of the cathedral.
It's
U.S. Capitol building.
Witchcraft.
Again, this tripod, Masonic procession ceremony
It's
involved
a
in it.
ritual of
And
them
something else I'll go
rejecting
in
the
future
Bible's verse,
episodes,
of
but
them
how
rejecting
many
Christ.
interesting cornerstones have been...
And that's why they keep redoing it and redoing it and redoing the ceremony, because they want to keep rejecting Christ. It's sick and disgusting, but that's the lengths that they go to.
Lost or misplaced. Very much like the Illinois State Capitol building, but so this is a plaque, and beneath this tablet the cornerstone was, so you can't see the cornerstone anymore, which is unusual. Again, that's something I'll look at in future episodes, but this corner ceremony, or compound pulley, and the tripod as well, and the ceremonial. So once the stone's laid, it would be tapped 3 times, and that's an important feature, the
Yep.
3, but it would be tapped 3 times to be put in place, and so really...
Yep. Not only that, here I'll read from you real quick of how the ritual. If we read right here, going down here, and I'll go up to the top of what where this is from, MasonicWorld.com, the evolution of the Cornerstone ceremony. And you can go all the way down, and it'll tell you about, the Supreme Council, blah blah blah, and this Grand Master who's explaining about how the far back important these cornerstone ceremonies were. But if you right here, it says he laid a medal under each of their turns, gave 3 strokes upon the stone with a iron mallet, which was succeeded by 3 clarions of the trumpet, 3 huzzas, and 3 claps of the hands. And that's at the very bottom of the first paragraph. I'll read it again. And after the Right Honorable the Lord Provost had laid a medal under it, each of their turns gave 3 strokes upon the stone with a iron mallet, which was succeeded by 3 clarions of the trumpet, 3 huzzas, and 3 claps of the hands. So as you can see, it's very ritualistic. There's a very important ceremony to it, and this is in 1721. Okay, and then that, 1721. James Anderson reported a similar ceremony on March 19th, 1721, in his 1722 Constitutions of the Freemason. And he says the same thing. So, yeah, the only point in the common to the 2 ceremonies were the symbolic striking of the stone with a mallet. In just a few decades, though, the ritual evolved into something more recognizable. So, again, striking the mallet, striking the thing, and like I said, if you watch this video to the end, it'll all make sense.
Interesting stuff. Masonic procession and grain, oil, and wine. I showed that earlier, but so for instance, the ceremonial, the grain, oil, and wine, again, very old. It's even
Yep, nothing new under the sun.
In the Bible, for instance, but does go back even well before that period as well. And we also have, so these are in the museum. These were the tools, including the square and all of the plumb line. So there would be a string attached to that, and to the level, the plumb line, the level, on the level, so they say, or this is a square house. These are, again,
it's been tried, tested, and true.
Important phrases that have been still passed on, and then the origins, meanings of them have been lost very much. This was 1993 rededication of the Cornerstone, like a reenactment of that ceremony.
That would make, if it's not a ritual, people say, oh, it's not a ritual, it's not a ceremony, you're a liar, and this, that, and the other. Well, if it's not a ceremony, why would they have a reenactment? And it's not even like it's a certain amount of time later. It's not like it's 100 years or 60 years or 50 years. A lot of times they're just random dates that they just pick. Hey, let's, 70-something years, 60 years, whatever. We'll just have a reenactment ceremony. Absolutely ridiculous. It's a ritual. It's magic.
And grain, oil, and wine. Grain, oil, and wine. Okay, so we see the Masonic, the square and the compass in this. This was Missouri State Capitol using the square, and Mason tracing board. So what do we have? We have the square and the levels.
Yep.
And also this level, the plumb line and the level, and the square to test the stone, to say that the stone is tested, and the stone the builders rejected is another phrase. We'll get into that in other episodes. So there we see the
tried, tested, and true.
and then we have the finish stone, even with the lifting
T's.
point as well. I mentioned earlier, I showed the mallet at St. Mary's Cathedral. So we have the mallet, the square, the plumb line, and the trowel. So the trowel, the mallet, the square, and if I just
and as you guys seen, back up
here,
right there, if you just back right up, you guys can see right on the bottom, you can see the cubes, the cornerstones.
Trowel. So the trowel.
And they have two of them,
Mallet,
a rough one and a smooth
square,
one.
And if I just go back to St. Mary's,
and there's a whole ritual and saying behind all that too.
Mallet, trowel, and square.
Donate plasma today and
I
receive up to
truly apologize, guys,
$700
about
your
these
first
ads.
month.
I
CSL Plasma.
truly
Do the amazing.
apologize. I did give a heads up because I knew it was going to happen because it happened when I watched the videos.
And square. This was a first stone, Baltimore, Ohio, but again, well, you see him testing the stone with the square, and you even see the on the level there as well.
Excuse me.
It's basically this item, this one or this one.
There's a plumb line above it.
Subtle differences there, but they're very important. Also, they would ring bells
actually on
at the ceremony. Again, this is quite an old thing, but again, what do we have? We have the bell and these important rituals. St. Mary's. Okay, so there we see clearly the mallet, the trowel, and the square. And this is a Catholic cathedral, and this is much older than the modern Masonic fraternities, which themselves are much.
Which is, yeah, but the whole lie of you can't be Catholic and be a Mason, that's a lie.
Older. Going back to the craft guilds and the old stone masons, Greco-Roman times, and even back, and we'll see in Egypt as well, especially a lot of these temples in Egypt, which are called ancient Egyptian, are actually Ptolemaic. Even though the hieroglyphs, the gods depicted are very Egyptian looking, they were actually built in the Ptolemaic period and the Roman period as well.
So
Cornerstone.
I'm going to end it there. With that video, I'm going to play a little bit of the other video, and then I'm going to call it good.
The third ever City Hall Cornerstone ceremony in Windsor's entire history took place this morning at City Hall Square. Masons from near and far gathered to celebrate a transfer of history. This is a time-honored tradition that goes back 300 years to the start of Masonry, and you saw that today. You could hear some of the old words and old phrases coming out as part of this ceremony, and it's something that they appreciate doing. We certainly appreciate having them here and recognizing that a new City Hall is not something that you build very often. The 2018 Cornerstone will be located on an interior wall, along with cornerstones from two former city halls when the new city building is complete next May. The project is expected to cost $43.6 million. You know, it's not very often one gets to open a new city hall, and it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities.
It's the symbolism of a rite and ceremony that Masons have done for centuries.
Well laid, well proved.
You can do it 3 times.
True and trusted.
There are more than 35,000 Masons in Ontario. This year they are celebrating 300 years and take pride in tradition. Members from Michigan, Ohio, Toronto, and Manitoba were present for this rare occasion.
At one time, operative Masons laid cornerstones in most structures that they made. It's a bit of symbolism to it that Masons do, and we should continue to do it to this day. We're very proud to be here.
Hi, welcome to the channel.
I think. Yeah, he connects some other stuff that.
And, you know, the way the heads are pointing means something.
He talks about Freemasonry and the Baphomet and the star and all that type of stuff. That's good information, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the cornerstones. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope this was edifying to you guys. This is going to conclude part 2 of the cornerstone that was rejected. Again, they reject Jesus Christ. They reject the Messiah. They want to take another path to heaven. They want they want to take another way to heaven, and they think they can get there without Jesus Christ, and they are sadly mistaken. And that great celestial lodge that they think they go to in the sky, with their little pine cone ceremony that they do at the funerals and all that, with the evergreens here, excuse me, um, it's just ridiculous. And like I said, it's all symbolic, it's all a ceremony, it's all a ritual, it's all pagan, it's all occultic, and it's all to show they've rejected Jesus Christ, who is the chief cornerstone. They've rejected him, they've rejected his sacrifice, they've rejected his blood. And I pray for those people, and I pray that this video is eye opening. I put a lot of things together in 2 different videos. So between these 2 videos, you guys should have all the information that you needed. I don't think I left out anything. Now I could have went deeper and talked about the Georgia Guidestones and why they're there, why they picked that location, the numerology that surrounds a lot of it, and all that type of stuff, the sacred geometry that goes into all that type of stuff. But that's not what we're talking about. The point is, the chief cornerstone that's rejected, that they're talking about in the Bible, is Jesus Christ. They have rejected him, and so hopefully this has brought some clarity to those scriptures. And God bless each and every one of you guys. I want to thank you guys. Thank you.